all you care about, that's how they'd phrase it. They'd say something, they quietly to themselves be thinking, all they care about is the interview. And you know what? Since you're not picking up on my nonverbal cues, since you're not recognizing what I'm telling you without saying it, sorry, it's not you, it's me. I apologize, but I just can't do this. I don't want to be here anymore. I feel ill. I just don't feel, no, it's not you, I apologize, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Basically, I just want to get the out of here. That's what they're saying, right? Because you dropped the ball, right? And you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. You want to be receptive. You want to be attentive. I'm trying to be attentive to your needs, and I don't even see you guys. I'm trying to be attentive to your needs, and there's a multiplicity of you guys. There's thousands of you guys, hundreds of which will probably watch this video, if that, and it'll take like a year for hundreds of you to watch this video. In the next couple months, a handful of you watch it, but I'm making this video for the handful of you that will watch it. And the idea is you want to be attentive to the needs of the other person. And what you want to do is you want to demonstrate to them that you are attentive to their needs by the act of your participation, right? I'm here in a research position because I really want to take your information and be able to generalize it to save the lives, to help make the world a better place. That's what qualitative research is about. We are all still pie in the sky idealist, not in the philosophical idealist, because, anyway, bad joke. We're all idealists. We're all thinking that we're going to make the world a better place. We all think that our paper is going to help, revolutionize the way that this happens or the way that this community is engaged or accessed. I feel like what I'm doing is changing the world. Whether it's true or not is irrelevant. It's the feeling. Right? It's the feeling that's motivating it. If you are genuine, if your feeling is authentic, if it comes across as authentic, your participant is going to tell you anything you need to know. Because your participant takes comfort in the fact that you're not going to ask that question, right? And of course you're tactful and you don't, right? But you allow the participant to engage as much or as little as he or she wants. Again, like I said, this is a super hard lecture to give. It's a super hard lecture to give because there isn't much that I am actually giving you. What I'm trying to give you, unfortunately for me, fortunately for you, is more of me, my personal self. So that you can see a little bit, right? I always have the veneer up. Jason J. Campbell is always up. But I got to give you a little bit of access into me and sort of pop culture references in order to help you have a sense in which, yeah, I get what he's saying. I can't really describe it, but I get what he's saying. I'm going to incorporate a little bit of that when I am engaged in my interview process, right? So number two is positivity, right? Presented within during the interaction. We know what positivity is. No sense in going into that. The next point, which is really, really important, right, is a part of this dynamic structure of rapport. For me, it's absolutely fascinating. And I want to spend so much time on this, but I'm not, right? Because I'm already a few hours into just this section alone. Is the idea of coordination. The idea of coordination, right? I am absolutely, profoundly fascinated with the idea of coordination, of sync, the sync between individuals. And I'll talk about the passage, I'll quote, because I remember what the author said. I'm about to read in a couple of seconds, a passage that says something along the lines like, husband and wife are at dinner with friends. You can imagine the scene. You see it in the movies all the time. And everybody's laughing and talking about their day or whatever people do. And then the husband and wife are talking and she says something and he says something and he finishes her sentences. He finishes her sentence. They say the same thing without having planned it. They sync. The idea of coordinated action is a very beautiful thing, right? The idea that, for me, on a quick tangent, and this is going to be a huge tangent, for me, people believe that, I was trained by a very, very rigorous, logically fortified, logical, philosophical sort of education. That's my training. There is a sense in which I don't care how good you are at whatever it is your discipline is. You could be at the most abstract level of sociology. You could be at the most difficult, complicated, demographically saturated level of anthropology. You could be at logically the most nuanced aspects of mathematical logic. There is a sense at which the best in the field aren't bound by the rules of the discipline. There is a sense in which the researcher, sync with, the only thing I can sync with as a researcher at this level is, I've stepped up from a few steps from where I was a few years ago as a graduate student, intellectually, just because the lecture series forced me to really get in-depth understanding, right? The best education is self-education, but I find myself trying to sync with pop culture, with society. For me, personally, and I'm biased, no human being I've met in my life does it better than Slavoj Žižek. That dude is a monster. Žižek is his ability to sync with pop culture is uncanny. Like, he gets it. He and I'm not here like blowing the Žižek horn, but you guys know I've talked a lot about Žižek, right? I probably talk about Toni Morrison and Žižek the most in all my lectures. The two of those authors and sort of pop culture folk, they creep up in everything that I do, because the thing I like about Žižek is there is a sense of authenticity with him. He doesn't come off as some arrogant academic. He is undoubtedly a freaking genius. There's no denying that. Granted, there's controversy around him, right? There's controversy, right? Everybody doesn't like Žižek. A whole lot of people don't like Žižek. Me, I'm in the camp of sort of Žižek groupie, as I said before. I'm not so much and I've read his stuff, and I'm going to incorporate some of his stuff in my ideology lecture series. I'm going to incorporate his book in my ideology lecture series, breaking one of my cardinal rules, which is don't do a lecture series on people who are alive. But it's an edited work, so I'm going to incorporate some of Žižek's stuff. But the idea is that Žižek is in sync with a huge demographic. Right? He's not in sync with everybody, but when he talks, right, he knows that Lacan stuff so well. It's hard to really do like philosophy and psychology really, really well, right? Because there's a lot of points at which psychology and philosophy divert. And I sort of went the Foucauldian path, and I stepped away from psychology. I have an amazing reverence for psychology. I have a reverence for all disciplines. I love what it is that they do, but I don't incorporate a lot of psychology in my own work, which is why I don't know the difference between subconscious and unconscious. Žižek, however, took the Lacanian path and he merged that with philosophy. So he's philosophy, psychology, and he's in sync with pop culture. I watch his stuff, I'm like, oh my god. I watched, what's it called, City of Men? I forget the name of the movie, it's a while. And I saw his documentary and his commentary on that. And I watched Pet Sematary, and I watched his commentary on that. And he's in sync. There is a sense in which he isn't bound by the rules of philosophy. He isn't bound by the rules of psychology. Žižek he's, not to say no one's above the law or above the rules. There are rules that govern, but he knows the material so well that he's not wedded to having to flip through the notes in the books. It's a beautiful experience when you get to that level of your education, right? I'm about 2 more steps from being not at the level of Žižek. It's not a comparative thing, but where I have such a command of the literature because of all I did 115 hours of lecture last year. You know how many hours of reading it took and note-taking it took to do that 114 hours worth of lecture? A ton. I noticed stuff. There is a point at which for me personally, not for you, it syncs. I sync with the nuance, with the vibe of the culture, of society at large. There's going to be a huge segment of society that I'm out of sync with, but the idea is for me to generally sync with the researcher, to generally sync with the type of researcher I am, to generally sync with the totality, the vast majority of American, global, whatever have you, culture. I'm in sync with it. And I can understand, make assessments of these cultural phenomena, these cultural norms, because I'm part of the culture and I have the extremely sort of refined esoteric training and experience to inform why that occurs.